Absolutely, and I'm glad you reminded me that the Summer Olympics, are supposed to take place there. I think we need to scratch it. I think that China is being very deceptive. They're not giving us a full story. I do believe, and I could be wrong, that China manufactured this for whatever reason, and it got out of control. I mean, to have it in a small town or province in China, and then it starts to spread, and then you have people coming to different parts of the world spreading the same virus. I mean, we got to wake up. And I know that President Trump said he's spoken to President Xi and, he's saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I don't trust the man, just like I didn't trust him with the trade deal. I think he's mad because we have the upper hand with trade. And the same way they hide their currency as to what's really going on in their economy, I think they're hiding this. And it's very interesting that the doctor who was trying to sound the alarm about this recently died over the weekend. There's more to this story than what we're being told.
All right, guys, welcome to another edition of the MAGA Media Podcast. I'm here with Rob Harper, as always. How you doing today, Rob?
I'm doing just fine. How are you, Andy?
Doing great.
Yes.
The police union are now boycotting Mayor de Blasio, saying it's a war on policemen.
Right.
Just the destructive culture there with the New York and police officers. I think this all started during Barack Obama's administration.
Bingo.
What's it like there? Have you heard anything?
Well, not too long ago, there was I think about 2 weeks ago, there was a protest by Antifa. They were going to flood the subway systems in protest, believe it or not, police officers in the subway to prevent crime. Now, the way it is now, you don't see a lot of police officers in the subway, but the few that are there, they need to be there. In addition to that, where they are, they're strategically placed in different areas whereby there is high crime. And unfortunate, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like this and might not agree with it, but the high crime areas are in the Black and Hispanic communities. Let's just be honest. Be honest in order to solve the problem. Now, when Giuliani was the mayor, he was able to eradicate a lot of that crime, and it went down. But it required putting police in those strategic areas. So now, come along, Bloomberg. Bloomberg did the same thing, because he saw that it was working, and blacks were appreciative because they saw that the crime went down in their communities, the communities where they lived. They didn't have all the violence that was there. Okay, along comes de Blasio and his wife, Charlene, whom I think is the co-mayor, and he decided, we don't need this. We need to get rid of some of the police officers. We have too many police officers. And if some of our listeners and readers will recall, right after he was elected, there were killings of, I think, a police officer in Brooklyn and across the nation. And Barack Obama was still in office. So again, he precipitated a lot of this stuff because he himself felt that, police officers, they're bad. So you saw the crime, the animosity between the police and the Black community. It was just on an all-time high. And blacks weren't the only ones, I must say, being affected by this, because there were a few whites also. I think I remember a situation in Arizona whereby a police officer had harmed this white guy. So, but proportionately, it was police officers against blacks. Barack Obama turned his head, and comes de Blasio, he and his wife, Charlene, and then they decided to come up with all these crazy new laws, including Andrew Cuomo was part of this. So as of January 1st, 2020, a law was passed that, if you arrested someone, some of the crimes were considered, misdemeanors, and if you brought them in, they would have to be let go. You could not hold them. There was no bond for them. So in the case that took place this weekend, the guy who basically tried to ambush 2 police officers in Brooklyn, apparently, so I'm told, had been arrested and then released. And then he pulls this stunt. So I think the police have a right to protest de Blasio. And when he's coming to the hospital beds of these officers, they have a right to turn their backs on him in disapproval to let him know, we don't like you. Now, he's serving, I think, his second term as mayor. People say, well, if they don't like him, how is he serving a second term? You've got to realize that New York is New York City, that is. Outside of New York, there's a different story. But a majority of the votes come out of New York City. New York City is extremely liberal. They will cut off their nose to save their face. They see crime is all around them. They see the crime is in the subway. They see the crime is coming back after being gone for almost 20 years. They won't say anything. You'll actually have some liberals saying, oh my gosh, I wish Times Square was the way it was 20 plus years ago. 20 plus years ago, you could get killed in Times Square. Now, Times Square is family friendly. You can go and you can walk around. But that bad element is coming back. And if you look across the nation at these large cities, who's at the helm? Liberals with their liberal policies. And they're dumbing down the laws. Why are they dumbing down the laws? Because they think that it's not fair. Who is it not fair for? Well, it's not fair for minorities. No, listen carefully to what I'm saying. They're saying that it's not fair to minorities. Okay, now, if a minority is saying that the laws aren't fair, why would you go and commit a crime? If you perceive that you're not going to be treated justly, why commit the crime? Why not just obey the law and you won't have to worry about it? But instead, we're saying, oh, commit the crime, and then we're going to lessen the penalty because, you're going to commit a crime. It makes absolutely no sense. So I went a long way to answer your question, but I felt our viewers need to have this background as to what has been transpiring in New York and all these other cities. So my opinion on it is that we need to get rid of de Blasio. We need to get rid of a lot of these liberal mayors, a lot of these liberal governors that are over these cities because they're not helping minorities. They're hurting minorities because a lot of the crime is in the minority communities. And if you get rid of the crime, if you bring the police in, the police will make certain that it's not there. Now, yes, there are some issues whereby you have a few rogue police officers. And whenever they do something rogue, it's all over the news. But you're going to have that in any organization because these are still human beings. But what you also need to have is you need to have effective laws to protect the community. Plain and simple.
Yes, it all comes back to the resentment that President Obama put in a lot of the black communities.
Absolutely. And what did he do?
And what were against him? He
right.
basically endorsed Black Lives Matter and their disgusting rhetoric towards cops. Fry them in a skillet, eat them like bacon. Just disgusting chants that the Black Lives Matter did to cops. And I still think that a lot of the divisive rhetoric we see today is coming from President Obama's reign.
Yeah, his 8 years in office is coming from him because he didn't say anything against it. Remember once he said that a police officer who had arrested this author, Bill Gaines, I think his Gaines, I can't remember the first name, they had said that he called the cops, he said they were stupid for arresting him. Now, when I look at the situation, everyone knows for the most part who the author is, although I can't recall his name. But he was responding to a call saying that someone was peering inside of a home. He didn't know if the guy lived there or not. The only thing he had to do was just to present his ID and said, I live here. Now, of course, you're going to be offended by that because you know that I live in this house. You're coming to me and you want me to give you ID to prove that I live here. And coming from a black man, from a police officer, you're probably going to think, how dare you? This is insulting. But to diffuse the situation, because clearly he didn't know who you were, sir, all you had to do was just to present your ID. But what did Barack Obama do? He blew it out of proportion. And then we ended up having a Beergate summit with the three men coming together and talking about it. All Obama had to do was just to come out and say, look, the police are here to protect and to serve. They're black police officers. And when a black police officer does something wrong, what do they say? Oh, well, it's systemic. It's embedded in the culture. So no one ever wants to address the issue is that, police officers are human beings just like we are. And they want to go home to be with their families at the end of the day. If you're stopped by a police officer, listen to what he has to say, allow him to assess the situation, and then you can go on your merry little way. And if you felt that you were mistreated, file a complaint while you're alive. Don't lose your life over something that's not worth it. By God, wake up, people. Come on.
Absolutely, Rob. I could not have said it better. Earlier today, it broke that there was two more police officers shot in Arkansas.
Yes.
Still news and details coming out of that story. It's just another tragic example of the disrespect and It's subordinates to police officers these days.
Absolutely. And I'm from Arkansas, and I heard that. It took place, I think, in Forest City. And I'm like, are you serious? Police officers shot again? It's like, police officers' lives matter. When someone is breaking in your home, who do you call? You call the police officers. You don't call the drug dealer. It's like there has to be more respect for police officers. Again, I know that there are some bad cops that are out there, but there are also bad politicians who make bad decisions and bad laws. And clearly, Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo, are two such politicians who have created an environment whereby things aren't working the way they should. And this has to stop.
Absolutely. One more quick thing before we sign off that I wanted to ask you about was you've been following this entire coronavirus story, and it seems like the numbers spiked once again yesterday. Sounds like just hundreds of people are dying over in China.
Yeah.
The Olympics were actually supposed to be set there for the summer. What do you think of the coronavirus so far? Do you think it's something that Americans should be worried about just yet?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you reminded me that the Summer Olympics are supposed to take place there. I think we need to scratch it. Mm-hmm. I think that China is being very deceptive. They're not giving us the full story. I do believe, and I could be wrong, that China manufactured this for whatever reason, and it got out of control. I mean, to have it in a small town or province in China, and then it starts to spread, and then you have people coming to different parts of the world spreading the same virus. I mean, we got to wake up. And I know that President Trump said he's spoken to President Xi and, he's saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I don't trust the man, just like I didn't trust him with the trade deal. I think he's mad because we have the upper hand with trade. And the same way they hide their currency as to what's really going on in their economy, I think they're hiding this. And it's very interesting that the doctor who was trying to sound the alarm about this recently died over the weekend. There's more to this story than what we're being told. And I would tell people to protect yourselves. I would not travel to China. When they recently had here in New York, they had the Chinese New Year. I didn't go, and I usually go every year. Because just like clockwork, you'll always have someone who has a cough and thinking, oh, I'll be okay. Then they come out coughing in the public, not covering their mouths, and then everyone else gets infected. Everyone else is sick. It's like, come on, show a little respect. If you're sick, and if you were in China, or if you were around someone who was infected, don't assume it's okay, because it's not okay. You are a threat to the rest of us. And I think that wherever it is here, it needs to be contained. That being said, again, the Summer Olympics in China, it needs to be pulled. Because we can't afford to allow our athletes to go there and them telling us, oh, it's contained, it's quarantined. Then the next thing you know, someone who was quarantined decides, oh, I'm going to go to the Olympics, and then start coughing, and then people are affected, and then it comes here, and then it starts to spread. I'm told that it's more dangerous than SARS, which took place about 2 decades ago. We can't afford this. And I don't know if it's airborne. I see a lot of people in New York, believe it or not, wearing these masks. I've tried wearing a mask. I can't breathe. I don't know how doctors do it. But that being said, I think that we can exercise precaution. And I think one of the things is we need to make certain that people that are coming from China, quarantine them. Make certain that they're tested. Because it's very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I would have liked to, I attended a Democrat event we were covering last week with Ilhan Omar. I raised my hand for a question and she didn't pick me, but I was going to ask her what she would do about the corona, or she was actually campaigning for Bernie Sanders. I was going to ask her, with the Democrats' constant want for open borders, what would the Democrats do to limit a situation like the coronavirus? It just seems like open borders would be a nightmare.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because see, that's another threat right there with the open border. I mean, how do we know these people aren't going into Mexico or someone who was there and spreading this disease? I mean, I do believe that this was manufactured by China. And with the open border, borderless country that the Democrats want, because they're looking at, borderless, everyone can vote. It's like, but then you don't have a country. If everyone is voting in your country, you can have people coming from Russia. Since they're so afraid of Russia, how do you know that Russians aren't coming in and they're not voting to control the votes? I I mean, these people are complete idiots when you stop and think about it. It's like, folks, think. A borderless country, giving everyone a driver's license or identity cards and then pushing them out to vote, you could potentially have huge blocks coming from Russia, coming from China, coming from Iran, or wherever else, and then voting in your election. How do we know how Ilhan Omar was elected? And then you look around out there and you see a lot of other Muslims that have I don't want to say infiltrated, but they're in parts of the government. Some of them, rightfully so. Some of them don't have that crazy mindset. But those who are in parts of government, branches of government, that have these crazy ideas, I wonder, how were they elected? I don't know how this woman was elected in Minnesota or Michigan, as far as Rashid Tlaib. How were they elected? Did they have a huge enough block to vote for them? Or were the votes infiltrated? I mean, these are questions that I always ask. And if you ask, people will say, oh my God, you're Islamophobic, you're xenophobic, you're thisophobic, you're that. Well, okay, I will be phobic or whatever you want to call me, because I think that is a major concern. We need to know who is voting. And if we have to go to voter ID, I know the Constitution gives us all the right to vote, but everyone can get a freaking ID. If you have illegal aliens coming over here getting an ID to drive, getting an ID to get government assistance, why in the heck can a black person in South Carolina or backwoods Georgia get an ID to vote? If you're 100 years old right now, if you're in Georgia and you're South Carolina and you're black, you would have gotten an ID years ago. So don't come telling me this crap about I can't get an ID. Because if you're getting public assistance, you have an ID. Folks, wake the heck up.
Yes.
It's all a ruse.
It would be interesting if this coronavirus starts spreading into poorer countries like India and South America, where they don't have the medical means to even limit it at all. If some of the liberal Democrats, even some of the Congress, might change their tune on the open borders policy.
I don't know. I doubt it seriously. I mean, when you have Joe Manchin, who knows that he should have voted not to convict, changing his mind, I question. I mean, he votes out of expediency when he feels that it's safe, because he doesn't want a Republican, because he's in a Republican district and he doesn't want them to vote him out. Now I think they should. But going back to what you said, I think that if the virus were to enter some of these poor countries, and I've heard that they have seen it, that it's there in a small cases, it is there. I don't think it would change their mind, because I think right now, if we were to find out that it's in Mexico and the poor areas, they would still want people coming across the border, because they're just that ignorant and stupid. And it's scary.
Just reminded me of one more story we could talk about real fast. Jorge Ramos actually did an editorial about how Mexico is now our border wall, he says. He's very upset that Mexico's National Guard is now doing all they can to keep immigrants out. It sounds like he is admitting to another President Trump win without even realizing what he's saying.
And rightfully so. I mean, these guys, I would not be allowed to go to Mexico and set up shop and just say, hey, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to live off the government. So they shouldn't be either. Now, Andy, just two more things if we have time, I want us to mention. I want to talk about the Oscars, which I didn't watch, bits and pieces. But before we go there, I want to talk about Gayle King.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about the Gayle King. I don't know if you see my article on mangamedia.org about it.
Yes. So I want to talk about it. Okay, so here's the thing. For one, I think that Gayle King is an opportunist. Okay, she and Oprah Winfrey, but hey, to each his own. But last week, Gayle King stepped into a pit fire when she had one of Kobe Bryant's friends, a female black woman. She was talking to her about Kobe Bryant and, this whole thing with his legacy, he's dead and whatnot. And if she felt that Kobe Bryant, what was the follow-up from Kobe Bryant raping this woman back in 2003? Now, personally, it is a fair question. I'm sorry, let me take that back. It is fair to bring it up because that is part of who Kobe Bryant is. What isn't fair is the way she brought it up as if though she was trying to relitigate the case. A journalist myself who went to journalism school, I am aware that my actions have consequences. And whatever I write, people are going to challenge me on it, and rightfully so. And sometimes people are passionate. And sometimes, they become so passionate they might make, empty threats. Do I think that Gayle's being threatened? Absolutely not. Because if she were, or if the threats were serious, the FBI would be involved. Are the FBI involved? No. So I think this is a fabricated by she and Oprah just to garner, people to feel sorry for her. Now, that being said, what Gail should have done, if she wanted to bring it up, she should have said, okay, Lisa Leslie, we are aware that back in 2003, Kobe Bryant was alleged that he raped a young woman. This is part of his legacy. Later on, he was found not guilty, and the case was squashed, and they moved on. That was it. But what does Gail do? She queries her. She goes, do you think he did it? Clearly, Lisa Leslie was uncomfortable, and she said, well, no. Gail, well, how do you know? Well, he's my friend, and I've never seen him do anything like that. Well, how do you know? He's your friend. All the more reason you're not going to think he would do something like that, because he is your friend. And if I were Lisa Leslie sitting in that chair, my response to her would have been, oh, really? You got a point. Just like people think that Oprah is a mean-ass bitch. Do you think she's a mean-ass bitch? And do you think that she finishes people's sentences? And do you think that she's arrogant and that she wants it her way or the highway? And if Gail would have responded, well, no, because she's my friend. You're right, Gail. You wouldn't know, because you're riding her coattail to success. So you're not going to see that what other people see. So in my opinion, what Gail is going through, people are feeling sorry for her. No, she's a grown woman. She's a journalist. If she had been a man and had stepped in it, do you think we would have sympathy for the man? Heck no. They would say, hey, it happened. And then he would have to live it out. So because women want to be equal like men, I say to Gail, put on your big woman panties, own it, live up to it. You made a mistake. Okay? Because there was a way you should have asked the question, as opposed to trying to relitigate the case. It's part of his legacy. Simple as that. Go ahead.
Very fair points, Rob. I think it's kind of ironic that I do feel like the questions might have been in poor taste by Gayle King. Maybe the Democrats can see what the hate is like, because they constantly go at President Trump for never even touching a woman, just making a joke about grabbing a pussy. They act like he's some kind of rapist, and it's just hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Absolutely, absolutely. So everyone, please read Andrew's article on megamedia.org for more insight on this. But, I wanted to talk about it because so many people have been opining and saying, we're tearing Gail down. And not only that, that Susan Rice, Barack Obama's, she was ambassador to the UN. She came out with some strong words to Snoop Doggy Dogg, telling him to, F off. I won't say the word here just in case your kids are watching this, but I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And this is not the first time Susan Rice, or dear Susan Rice, have used such strong words. She used it for Lindsey Graham also, when she told him the same thing. Lindsey Graham should F off. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought she was supposed to be this little gentle woman, but she's not so gentle, because if we all know, she probably started this whole buy some word. But hey, that's a topic for another discussion, another time.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Beto O'Rourke campaign with all the cursing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, what about the Oscars? The Oscars, yes.
I was very disappointed in Brad Pitt's speech, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I was a pretty big Brad Pitt fan of his movies and his roles, and he just went... It's kind of surprising, because I know he hangs out with Kanye West. He goes to a lot of his gospel things. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised that Brad Pitt took the position that all of a sudden he needs to be political, and he's alienated half his fan base.
Well, I'm like off and on with Brad Pitt. I do believe that he's a good actor. He's a good character actor. I think as he's aged, because of the things he's gone through, drinking and whatnot, he looks a bit on the rough side. But I would say Brad should be seen and not heard unless he's being heard on the movie screen. And to go that route with, President 45, that's more time than they gave John Bolton to testify. I got to keep telling people, and you got to wake up and listen.